Dr. Jann Malbec studied the DNA analysis displayed on screen as Dr. Lewis Dendrite, head of forensics, pointed out the salient details. Not that he needed to, because it only took Jann a moment to realize there was only one person on Mars with a DNA signature even remotely like the one she was now looking at. But it was not so much the scientific detail that concerned her. It was more the seismic repercussions. If what she was seeing were true, and she had no reason to doubt it, then something very weird was going on, something that brought back memories of the horrors of an earlier time. A time that Dr. Jann Malbec wished never to experience ever again. The colony had just come through a year-long dust storm, further exacerbated by a tech embargo from Earth and a quasi-revolution in Syrtis. The entire period almost finished the colony on Mars as an independent entity, and although things were returning to some level of normality, the overall political and economic situation was still precarious. So much so that she had been recalled by the Mars Council and pressed back into the service of the state. Jann had spent most of her time during the Great Storm, as it had become known, holed up with Nils Langthorpe on an opulent orbital station owned and operated by the industrialist Lane Zebos. It began simply as a short sojourn, a vacation of sorts. But as the storm progressed, eventually engulfing the entire planet, the station had turned into a refuge, albeit for a privileged few. As the months passed, Jann found herself becoming more and more distant from the trials being experienced by the people living on the planet's surface below. It was only when she received a long and detailed report from Mia Sorelli on the chaos that had taken place in Syrtis that she began to realize just how detached she had become from the reality on the ground. She vowed to make amends and returned to Jezero City as soon as flights resumed after the Great Storm. The Council then prevailed upon her to help shore up confidence in the current administration as the reconstruction efforts got underway, and the citizens of Mars tried, as best they could, to put the past behind them and return to something akin to normality. But now this new threat had emerged. 2 sols ago, a ship bound for Earth blew up on the launchpad on the outskirts of Jezero City during a routine ignition test. The failure was catastrophic. All that remained was a shredded hunk of metal and a large crater. Fortunately, there were no people on board at the time, nor were there any ground crew present, as the test had been performed remotely. Yet buried in the wreckage of the ship lay the charred remains of 2 bodies, so badly burned that the only way to identify them was through a DNA test. And it was the results of this analysis that were proving to be truly seismic. "You're saying they're an exact match?" Jann looked over at Dendrite. "Insofar as a DNA fingerprint can tell, yes, identical in every way." "Twins?" Jann offered. "Possibly." Dendrite pushed his old-fashioned glasses back up his nose. "But twins of this age are rare here on Mars. There are only 2 pairs in the population, and all 4 are alive and kicking. So if what we're looking at are indeed twins, then they're not from around here. And there's no record of twins arriving on the planet since well before the Great Storm."